While in Denver, I got a call from a lawyer for whom I'd clerked some in Chicago, and he told me he wanted to refer a client to me. The client was trying to escape a highly contested divorce, had investigators chasing her, etc., and wanted to move to Colorado. Could I please help her? I said, sure. Next thing I know, I get a letter wanting me to find her a place to live and do all these other kinds of stuff. And frankly, it was a great imposition, but I went ahead and did it because I really didn't have much else to do. I got her a place on 248 Logan Street, and she didn't have much to do and sort of commuted to Denver every day at the same time I did, and wanting me to make introductions to some of the people with whom I was working. I did as much as I could, and through the association with her, I got many strange, different tales, from the one that she was with the Russian military, GRU, to the fact she was a colonel in the Russian military. Also, she informed me that she was a colonel in the United States Air Force, worked for an intelligence agency, and all kinds of stuff. Some of which made sense and some of it didn't. One night, it was about Halloween, I was parked near her house. She got into her car and drove to the new customs building in Denver, and right down through the gate into the underground parking, and was there for 8 hours, and then exited and went home about 5 o'clock in the morning. The new customs house housed the Army, Air Force, and Navy recruiting stations, and the FBI office, and a lot of the intelligence offices of the military. So a lot of what she was saying sort of checked out. In the meantime, I continued my activities dealing with various protest groups like the Veterans Against the War, all kinds of things in the anti-war movement, and I continued working for the Italian American Civil Rights League. At the time, I also started representing Students for Democratic Society in Boulder, which was an interesting, eclectic group of clients. Now, since I was taking notes and doing research on organized crime, I had lots of notes and insights, things like that, in my separated files, not in my case files. Now, this is going to be relevant later on. As I progressed with my research and my clients got more confidence in me, they started disclosing some of the relationships with government agencies. And soon I was able to sociogram working relationships between government agencies and various groups dealing in weapons and drugs. In the meantime, the Chicago client was stirring things up a little bit, and we'd confer once in a while, almost daily in fact. I formed some corporations for her, and she referred a few clients to me. One of which was a professor whom she claimed to have known at University of Chicago. And was there at the same time I was attending law school in Chicago. So I made an appointment with him, started talking to him about a few things, and he was a very prominent person. He was Henry Kissinger's graduate student when he was in undergraduate school. His family was the equivalent of Rockefellers in Czechoslovakia. He had published some books on Czechoslovakia, and also was the first American scholar to visit the Iron Curtain when it was started to become penetrable. He went to graduate school from Berkeley to Harvard and was Henry Kissinger's graduate student there. His father had been a lawyer in Czechoslovakia, and his grandfather was the only elected head of state of that nation. After the war, she married one of the administrators of the Marshall Plan and left Austria, Czechoslovakia area, and went to Berkeley, where she lived with her new husband and her son. Well, apparently while her son was in Berkeley, his stepfather did a swan dive off the Oakland Bay Bridge in a mysterious fashion. Claimed to have been a suicide. Who knows? Anyway, about that time, my client from Chicago started doing some things that was calling attention to herself. She was claiming she had evidence on politicians that she could use to collect some money from and all this kind of stuff, and was tying a bunch of stuff together. One of the main things happening in Colorado at that time was the movement to legalize gambling, and it failed a few years previously because one of the so-called organized crime bosses was the owner of a place in Gilpin County that was going to be the location of a casino. So in about 1967 or 68, they concocted the scheme to have gambling in Gilpin County, because it was an entity before Colorado became a territory and later a state, claiming it was never part of the state of Colorado. And they got away with that for a few years, but the state Supreme Court knocked it down. So then they started other means. This involved a good percent of my clientele, because they were bookmakers, gamblers, etc. In the meantime, the drug war was gearing up. And at that time, under the Johnson administration, I was the beginning attorney for the Head Start program. I got later nominated to a group called the Organization for Drug Abuse Control, trying to figure out requirements, credentials, etc. for drug programs. This was funded by the Health, Education, and Welfare Department. Richard Nixon then ran for office on a law and order platform, impounded our funds, and formed a new agency called Law Enforcement Assistance Agency, and with the stroke of a pen, turned the medical problem into a law enforcement issue, which we had to make many adjustments to. The Vietnam War was heating up, and right after I started working with Head Start and the Organization for Drug Abuse Control, elections started. Martin Luther King got assassinated, and later Robert Kennedy got assassinated, causing a real split in the Democratic Party, culminating in the '68 Democratic Convention, where Chicago police used protesters' heads for target practice with their billy clubs. There were a lot of protests, there were a lot of draft card burnings, things like this. One day,